Imagine looking out at the world around you and seeing nothing but violence. Every direction you turn, cruelty, corruption, and chaos. Not just in one city, not just in one nation, everywhere. Now imagine being the one person on earth that God looks at differently. This is the story of Noah, and it is one of the most extraordinary accounts ever recorded in the pages of Scripture. The Bible tells us that at a certain point in human history, something had gone terribly, terribly wrong. The book of Genesis records that God looked down at the earth and saw that the wickedness of mankind was great. In fact, the scripture says that every intent of the thoughts of man's heart was only evil, continually. That is a striking description. Not occasionally evil, not mostly evil, but continuously and completely evil. We aren't given a precise number of years for how long this had been going on, or exactly how it began. But the Bible paints a picture of a world that had turned its back on God entirely, and the Creator of all things, the one who had made humanity with love and purpose, was grieved in his heart. The scripture actually uses that word, grieved. God was deeply pained by what the world had become, so he made a decision that would change everything. But before we hear that decision, the Bible stops and introduces us to one man. His name was Noah, and in a world filled with corruption, the scripture says something remarkable about him. It says Noah was a righteous man, blameless among the people of his generation, and that Noah walked with God. Now, the Bible doesn't give us a detailed account of everything Noah did or said to earn that description. We aren't told every story from his earlier years. What we are told is clear enough. In the middle of a generation consumed by wickedness, Noah was different, and God noticed. God came to Noah and told him plainly what was about to happen. He said he was going to bring a flood of waters upon the earth to destroy all flesh, in which there was the breath of life. Every living thing beneath the open heavens was going to perish. That was the verdict. But for Noah, God had something else in mind entirely. He said, "But I will establish my covenant with you." God gave Noah a task that would have seemed absolutely staggering. He told him to build an ark, a massive vessel made of gopher wood, sealed with pitch on the inside and outside to make it waterproof. The dimensions God gave were specific: 300 cubits long, 50 cubits wide, and 30 cubits tall. It was to have rooms, a door in its side, and a roof overhead. Now, the Bible does not tell us how long it took Noah to build this ark, or exactly how he gathered all the materials. We aren't given those details in the text. What the scripture does tell us is that God instructed Noah precisely, and that Noah did everything exactly as God commanded him, every single thing. God also told Noah to bring his wife, his 3 sons, Shem, Ham, and Japheth, and their wives, onto the ark with him. 8 people in total. And then came the part that would require an entirely different kind of faith. God told Noah to bring 2 of every kind of living creature onto the ark, a male and a female, to keep them alive through what was coming. For the clean animals and the birds, God specifically said to bring 7 pairs of each. They would also need to carry enough food aboard for both the people and all the animals. How Noah gathered every kind of creature is something the scripture doesn't elaborate on in specific detail. But what the Bible makes clear is that God was orchestrating something far beyond what Noah could have managed on his own. And then the day arrived. Noah was 600 years old when it happened. God spoke to him and said, "Go into the ark, you and all your household, for I have seen that you are righteous before me in this generation." So Noah obeyed. He went in, his family went in, and the animals came, 2 by 2, male and female, just as God had instructed. And then the Bible records one of the most quietly powerful moments in the entire story. After Noah and everyone with him had entered the ark, God shut the door. Not Noah, not any human hand. God himself closed the door, and then the sky broke open. The scripture says that on the 17th day of the second month, all the fountains of the great deep burst open, and the windows of the heavens were opened, and rain fell on the earth for 40 days and 40 nights. For 40 days and 40 nights, water poured from above, and the floodwaters rose. The ark lifted off the ground and began to float as the waters kept rising around it. They rose higher and higher until the scripture tells us they covered every mountain under the entire sky. Everything that had the breath of life in it on dry land died. Every human being, every animal, every bird, everything that moved on the earth was wiped out. Only Noah remained, and those who were with him in the ark. And then the scripture says something that carries incredible weight. It says, God remembered Noah. Now, the Bible uses this kind of language not to suggest God had forgotten him, but to signal that God was actively moving on his behalf. God caused a wind to pass over the earth. The fountains of the deep were closed, the windows of heaven were shut, and the rain from the sky was restrained. The waters receded steadily for 150 days after the flood had reached its peak. Slowly, the world that had been swallowed beneath the flood began to emerge once more. The ark came to rest on the mountains of Ararat, but even then, the ground was not yet ready. Noah waited, and at a certain point, he opened the window of the ark and sent out a raven, which flew back and forth until the waters had dried up. Then he sent out a dove. The dove found no place to set its foot because the water still covered the earth, and it returned to the ark. Noah waited 7 more days and sent the dove out again. This time, the dove came back with something in its beak, a freshly plucked olive leaf, one small leaf. But that small leaf told Noah everything he needed to know. Life was returning to the earth. He waited 7 more days and sent the dove out one final time. And this time, the dove did not come back. The land was ready, and then God spoke to Noah. He told him to come out of the ark, him, his wife, his sons, and their wives, and to bring out every living creature with him. Noah opened the ark and stepped out onto dry ground. After everything they had been through, the building, the waiting, the rain, the silence of the waters, the long months of floating over a drowned world, they were standing on solid earth again. And the first thing Noah did was build an altar to God. He took some of the clean animals and birds and offered burnt offerings to God on that altar. The scripture says that God smelled the pleasing aroma, and in response, he spoke words that would shape the rest of human history. This is the moment everything had been building toward. God made a covenant, a solemn, binding promise, not just with Noah, but with every living creature on the earth. He told Noah and his sons to be fruitful and multiply and fill the earth. He gave them authority over the animals and the fish and the birds. He also gave them permission to eat the animals of the earth, something that had not been explicitly granted before. But he gave one serious command alongside it. They were not to eat meat that still had its lifeblood in it. And above all, God said that he would require an accounting for every human life taken, because human beings were made in his image. Taking the life of a fellow human being carried the most serious of consequences. And then came the promise. God said, I establish my covenant with you and with your offspring after you and with every living creature that is with you. Never again shall all flesh be cut off by the waters of a flood, and never again shall there be a flood to destroy the earth. This was not a conditional promise. It was not, if you behave, then I will keep my word. It was absolute, unconditional. And God went further still. He said he would set a sign in the sky, a visible reminder of this covenant, something that anyone, anywhere, at any point in history, could look up and see. God said, I have set my bow in the cloud, and it shall be a sign of the covenant between me and the earth. Whenever clouds gathered over the earth and the rainbow appeared in them, God said he would see it and remember his everlasting covenant with every living creature. He said the rainbow would be the sign of the covenant he had made between himself and all flesh that is on the earth. Not a legend passed down by people trying to explain the weather, not a symbol invented by generations of tradition. A deliberate sign placed there by God himself to seal a promise he made to the whole earth. This is the story of Noah, a man who trusted God when the entire world had rejected him, a man who built when others mocked, who waited when others would have panicked, and who worshipped before he even stopped to celebrate his own survival. And at the heart of it all is a God who grieves over the brokenness of his creation, who preserves what is righteous, and who keeps his word. Every time you see a rainbow stretching across a stormy sky, you are looking at a promise that has already been kept for thousands upon thousands of years. And according to the scriptures, it will keep being kept